to bring you our top 10 games of 2015.
Woo!
I'm looking down there. Piles down there.
Okay.
We also have a couple honorable mentions.
All right.
But before we get started, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check out the website that gives you custom board game recommendations. There's links on the bottom. And then we should also mention a couple of caveats. We have not played every new game of 2015.
By like a lot.
By a lot.
By a lot.
And there's a couple notable ones that we definitely didn't play. We tried to get around to. Blood Rage being the top one I can think of.
Yeah. And also a bunch that we're scrolling through right now.
Yeah. we'll have some things coming down here. But and just because we didn't play them doesn't mean we didn't like them. If there's some games we missed, let us know in the comments, and we'll definitely check them out.
Yeah.
But other than that, these are the ones we did play. And we have a couple of honorable mentions you wanted to bring up, right? They couldn't quite make the top 10 for whatever reason or another.
Sure. So, well, first off, we didn't want to include expansions in this list.
Yeah, it's too difficult.
So, we wanted to mention our top expansion from 2015. For me, it was the Imperial Settlers Atlanteans expansion.
You love Imperial Settlers.
I love Imperial Settlers, and I really enjoyed how the Atlanteans expansion basically took the concept of Imperial Settlers and turned it on its head by totally syncing your entire faction's sets.
All your locations?
Location? Yeah, faction locations, sure.
Yeah.
So, I love that it totally worked. So,
cool.
I love this expansion.
And I picked, of course, Star Wars True Shadows. I love it because it made my family cry.
It did. Over Christmas.
We had our brothers in town, so we played this, and I was the overlord, and I beat them so badly that they said, we don't even want to play Thing 4, we'll just read the win at them once. No, but seriously, it takes Imperial Assault and allows you to play like a campaign in essentially just 4 campaigns. It gives increased like
4
rewards.
levels.
Yeah, 4 dungeons, levels, whatever you call them in Imperial Assault. But it increases the like rewards you get, so you can kind of like go through a full character progression relatively quickly. So it's kind of cool. I like it. And it's got Boba Fett. So.
Yeah, and you start off with a fight in a cantina. So like, what's more Star Warsy than that? So.
Also, if you hear thudding noises, it's our cat jumping around. You might have seen them up there too, but that's just going to happen. You had another honorable mention that you couldn't resist, right?
So I couldn't resist. The all victory points should be counted this way. Honorable mention goes to Swinging Jive Cat Voodoo Lounge. It's a pretty simple game that
it's really simple.
Wouldn't normally.
It's not even very great.
It's not even that. I mean, it's just a good game to sort of pass the time. But it counts as victory points by putting monkeys on a martini glass. And I think that from now on, I'm just going to be doing this in all of my victory point games.
Just bust out the
martini. Just going to bust out the martini. Exactly. So I think this is just a mechanic that I will be using in every game from now on. So
and you need an honorable mention.
Exactly. So.
All right. Game number 10. You want me to go first?
Yeah.
All right. My number 10 was, let me make my list here. It was definitely Witness. This is a strange game. It takes 15 minutes, and it's all about like whispering what you heard to your neighbor, and it's strange.
Yeah. So everybody gets a different clue, and then you play telephone with those clues to try to solve a mystery.
There are little mysteries like there are these 4 people who are suspects, and this is what we know about them, and the killer was the tallest, and then you get a bunch of information about how tall they were relatively to each other, and have to.
Yeah, I have a terrible memory, so when you play this game with me, I mess up everybody's clues for everybody.
Some people get really mad about that, and some people think it's hilarious. I fall into the latter category.
Yeah,
but it's only 15 minutes, so it doesn't waste much of your time. It's a fun little game.
It's true.
It doesn't have to be a big, fancy game to be awesome. So. Witness, number 10.
That's fair. My number 10 is a game that actually a lot of people didn't like this year, and that is Rattle Battle Grab the Loot. This is actually...
You love all Portal games.
This is the second Portal game that I mentioned today.
And might not be the last.
And is not the last. Spoiler alert. The reason that I liked this game is actually, it's because it is the game that is most likely to make me feel like I am playing a board game version of the Monkey Island computer games. So it's simply for nostalgia purposes. I really loved the Monkey Island games as a kid, and when I play this game, I feel like I'm playing with those Monkey Island games, where I don't really care whether I'm winning or not. There's really no strategy in this game because it's all random dice chucking, and all I'm trying to do is acquire the most random crew members possible. I'm trying to acquire the most random ship upgrades possible.
It's really silly, like drop the dice, you have to measure, and it's really finicky, but it's definitely fun.
It's it's just silly. Kind of if you're trying to play an actual game, this is not the game for you. But if you just want to be a silly, goofy pirate, then I think it's a fun game for that.
All right. So what's your number 9?
My number 9 is the third Portal game, and that is Tides of Time. So this is a little micro game. It's a 2-player drafting game, and it takes about 15 minutes to play. And it's a simple game where you have, I think it's 18 cards or something like that.
Yeah, it's 18 cards. You use all of them every game. It's just about the order they come out in. And you're trying to score points, and you're trying to keep certain cards out of the other player's hand. Considering how little cards there is, there's actually a lot of punch to this game. It's 2-player only. In terms of micro games, I like it better than Love Letter, but that's obviously for a different crowd.
Yeah, I liked it. Strategic. I liked it as a pretty good, pass the time while waiting in the airport kind of game.
That's good for that.
So that's the reason that it scores high on my list. It fills that kind of niche.
I do like it. All right, I believe my number 9 is also on Stephanie's list, so we're gonna have to wait for that one.
Drama.
All right. On to number 7 because of drama.
Wait.
Or number 8? 8. I can't count.
Yeah.
Number 8.
Wait, are we doing yours?
I'm going to go first.
Okay.
You guys should go first last time. I don't think Stephanie has this one on her list, but it is Flick 'em Up. It was one of our few acquisitions from Gen Con, which was kind of funny because at Gen Con they had like a giant version of it that made everyone else sad. But it's a dexterity game that's cowboys, and you literally like flicking bullets, and the expansion adds like horses, and you can knock people off their horses, and it's like 2 teams of guys. It's a dexterity game, but it's so silly because it's got these little cowboys, and like their brims of their hats tell you like whose turn it is. It's so funny.
It's ridiculous. You're like shooting through saloons. You're knocking over cacti.
Little cacti cutouts.
Yeah,
it's expensive, but it's cool.
It's a tad expensive because it's tons of wood. Yeah. Considering that it's just a flicking game, but at the same time, it's because there's so much involved in it that makes it more and more ridiculous. Yeah. So.
And it adds the single best rule for any dexterity game that I suggest everyone add to every dexterity game they play that involves flicking, whether it's Rampage, Terror in Evil City, right? That's the name?
Right.
Catacombs. But it's like you can't flick with your thumb. You can't use your thumb to like provide resistance. You have to just flick without getting resistance from the table or your thumb. Because when you do that, stuff flies everywhere, and it's hard to figure out what's going on. But if you only can flick just like with your finger, it calms everything down and makes it work. That's another good. That's one of the reasons I actually like it better than Catacombs as well. So.
Okay.
All right. Stephanie's number 8.
My number 8.
And we're back.
Okay.
A cat attacked the computer.
Starting over again.
So we'll go to Stephanie's number 8.
So my number 8 is Mysterium.
Mysterium was my number 9. This is the one I skipped.
So this is a game that got a lot of love over Halloween, which is right after when we got it. We got to play it with lots of different groups of people. We got to play it with a bunch of gamers. We also got to play it with Adam's family, which is a group of decidedly not gamers. It's a combination of Dixit and Clue in the sense that you're trying to solve murder, but it's also all cooperative. And it's done in the sense of a group of investigators, I guess, are holding a seance to try to determine how this murder was conducted, and one player, who is usually me, is playing...
It wasn't usually you. I always did it first.
Whatever. I did it like 5 times. Is playing the ghost psychic who's trying to pass on clues as to how they were murdered. which is done through these cards that look a lot like Dixit cards.
So they pass out these big cards and say, oh, here's your clue, or here's a couple of ones that are your clues, and people have to try to determine just from those pictures which one of like 5, suspects it's going after or whichever. So yeah, it's a pretty cool, creative, arty deduction game.
Yeah, so it's creative for the psychic. It doesn't have to be creative. It's more deductive for the investigators. Doesn't have to be gamery for the people who aren't gamers, but you can also add in this optional element of determining who's best at deducing the clues for people who are gamers. So there's a lot of different elements in the game that I think appeal to a lot of different crowds of people. So that's the reason that I enjoy this game.
Yeah, it's cool. It had a bear of a time getting out of Gen Con, and it was handled pretty roughly. But once we got it, we're happy with the game. So. Yeah. Cool. All right. Your number 7?
Sure. My number 7 is Dead Men Tell No Tales. Ooh. Second pirate game on my top 10 this year.
Noticing a theme.
Yeah. So this game is a cooperative game.
We kickstarted, right?
That I kickstarted. It's out of Minion Games, so it's available outside
Retail,
Kickstarter as well. This game is sort of in the vein of Pandemic or Flashpoint, which I haven't actually played.
Yeah.
Which all the players work together. They're trying to get all of the loot out of a burning, haunted pirate ship before it blows up. And it's a fun game that you can scale according to how many players you have and how hard you want the game to be. All of the different players can have different special abilities.
But the basic rules are really simple.
But the basic rules you can make it as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. And I tend to really gravitate towards games like that.
Sometimes you go something, or you go crazy complicated. But this is definitely one you can bust out if you're not feeling like something serious. You're with like newer gamers who want something simple, right?
Right. No, I meant more towards. I gravitate towards these sort of cooperative, team solving kind of games, puzzle solving kind of games. That's what I meant more. I will say that if you hate the kind of cooperative games where alpha gamers can take over, this is subject to that. So maybe you don't want to play this kind of game. But I like those kinds of games. We don't have too many alpha gamers in our group. So
I feel like most of us are pretty good about going, okay, identifying when someone's having trouble and wants help, and otherwise letting people make their own decisions.
And it's pirate
That's definitely about your game group.
So that's awesome.
3 thumbs up then?
Yes.
All right. My number 7 is going to be later on Stephanie's list, so I get to skip again.
Woo!
I'm going to talk about some of these more later.
Yeah.
All right. So, number 7, mystery. All right. My number 6 is also higher on Stephanie's list.
All right.
So, I don't get to talk again. It's not fair. How about yours?
But my number 6.
I'm talking about this one.
Yeah, you talk about it since you got skipped.
All right, so this is my number 7 game. Yeah, Above and Below. This is another Portal game? No, this is a different one.
No.
This is Red Raven.
Yeah.
This game is so weird, and I love it. It's a combination of a pretty standard, sort of village building Euro game with something like Agents of Smersh or Tales of the Arabian Nights. And if that sounds insane, it is. And so it's basically, the above part is you're building a village, and you have workers, and you send your workers out to get more workers or to buy other locations that give you abilities. Pretty standard. Or you can send 2 of your workers to explore the cave system below your new village, in which case you roll randomly and read a thing in a book, and you get to decide whether you want to help the guy find some food or take his money, or if you want to help the giant fish find his wife who's trapped in a gem or not. And so it's like one of those kind of like choose your own adventure kind of things like Tales of the Arabian Nights, but instead it's a Euro game for victory points. It's so I liked it because you can play it with 2 disparate types of gamers. You can play one person who just wants a crazy fun story and wants silly things to happen to them, and you can play with another person who wants to optimize their victory points, and they can play the same game. which is very rare.
It's true. So you can decide, yeah, I definitely want to have a totally random, push my luck kind of experience, or I'm going to totally, not explore the caves at all this game. I'm going to totally just play the standard worker placement victory point game this game and have a completely different experience, and they're both totally viable options in this game.
Yeah, it's
so
cool and weird and awesome.
Yeah.
But I'll be interested to see how often, like, there's not that many, like, in Tales of the Arabian Nights, there's like 1,000 different things in the book. This one has like a couple hundred.
Yeah.
Like 200 or 300.
And they're not, I will say that the experiences that you have in the caves aren't nearly as exciting as the experiences you would have in Arabian Nights. So, but they're interesting nonetheless. So
that was your number 6, right?
That was my number 6.
All right. On number 5. Stephanie, what's your 5?
My number 5 is your number 3. So, for once, I get skipped.
Take that! All right, my number 5, I think, is also your number 3, oddly enough. So,
funny.
Double skip on 5. I don't get to talk about anything for 5. All right, number 4. Mine is not even on Stephanie's list, and mine's at number 4. It's XCOM. How did XCOM not make your top 10? It's a co-op game with a computer. You're the tablet in it.
It is. The reason is mainly because I've only I only played the tutorial version of XCOM, so I feel like I haven't really had the true XCOM experience.
Oh, okay, that's fair. Maybe it'll go up. We'll do a revised thing if people want. Again, make comments in the video here if you want us to talk about any of these any more in depth. But no, XCOM's fun. It's sci-fi, which is great for me. It's co-op, which I love. All the different players play a different role, which means you almost get a completely different game if you play different roles, which is cool. It's got this app that tells you what to do in what order and how much time you have. And at least in the tutorial, it wasn't so tight that you were like freaking out. But the fact that it could change it up and be like, oh my god, there are 5 crises this turn, you don't know it, adds a lot of tension to the game that you don't get from other games. Because other games are like, oh, it's from these cards, you kind of know what to expect. But in this, like, it would just throw random things at you. You're like, okay, I've got all these 8 UFOs taken care of, and then boop, 2 more UFOs come out. And so I think the app adds some really cool stuff to it.
Yeah, I think that the one thing that really surprised me about XCOM was how random it could be. Like the fact that you could just that there was possibility that you could just roll and like lose everything no matter what. Really surprised me. I think it's because they were trying to make it like a video game, which I've never played.
Well, it's interesting. So, for those who don't know, like whenever you make any kind of like research or attacking UFOs or attacking aliens, you roll however many dice you have, and they have like a 2 out of 6 chance of successes. So you might be rolling 3, but you also roll a D8. And on the first time you roll, if you roll a 1, all your guys die. They might succeed as well, but they all die. And then you can push your luck. And on the second time you can roll, and if you roll a 1 or a 2, all your guys die. And you can push it all the way up to 5 and keep going.
Yeah, I just kept rolling 1s.
And when you keep rolling 1s, you're just like, oh, well, there's just nothing I can do. I rolled a 1. I think we talked about this. We say, I think I would have preferred the game if they had balanced it toward your first run. There's no risk. But that wouldn't make sense thematically.
Yeah.
Because then, like, having no risk of attacking. But if it happens 2 or 3 times in a row, you start to have that like negative connotation with it. So that's maybe the downside. But I think it's super fun. It's a very good example of good app integration, I think. All right.
All right.
What's your 4?
My number 4.
My number 6. So
is your number 6? Yeah. So my number 4 is Burgle Brothers.
Let's keep the boxes.
It is. So this is a game that was recently kickstarted. It's by Tim Powers. And this is another cooperative game, and in this one, you are a team of
rogues, reptilians.
Yes, who are
thieves.
Thieves with hearts of gold. I don't think so. Not really.
It's a heist movie.
Yeah, you're breaking into
a bank or
depending on what difficulty level, to
Steal from safe.
To steal things. In our last game, it was all animals for some reason. And then you are trying to get to the chopper on the roof and escape.
It's a very it's not quite like it's got a very distinct theme to it, but the rooms are just like 4 tiles in a grid, and there's 2 or 3 levels.
Yeah.
So this is a simple presentation. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. So this one I think is super fun. Again, you have a bunch of different variable player powers. All of the rooms are done totally randomly. The placement of the safes is done randomly. The loot that you draw is randomly. The events that you'll draw,
how the guards patrol around your floor
is randomly. So like, there's a ton of variability in how you play. I just like the theme. I love Ocean's 11. I love playing the video game Monaco. So I just knew that right off the bat that this one was going to appeal to me. Again, and this is another co-op game that is going to potentially suffer from alpha gamer problems, which again is something that doesn't bother me. So
interesting rewind note: XCOM is one of the few like co-op games that doesn't suffer from alpha gamer problems.
Yes.
You all have your own thing to do.
But this one, I will say this game is hard. We've only played I think the regular level once, and we definitely got defeated hardcore. After playing easy, I think we're 50-50 on playing easy. But that just appeals to me that much more. The fact that we can't easily.
It becomes more like a puzzle that you have to beat rather than.
Yeah. So, that is my number 4, Burgle Brothers.
That was my number 6. I still really like it, but it's pretty cool. Alright, what's your number 3?
My number 3 was my number 1 game of Gen Con, and that is Codenames.
That's my number 5. This is one where we had our 5 and 3 were swapped, right?
So, Codenames.
That's a great party game. It's really good.
I don't know if I would say it's a great party game, but it's a great game to play with a large group as long as they don't mind burn-braining games. So,
brain burning?
Yes. Thank you. Brain-burning games.
It's a brain-burning phrase.
There we go. So this one can be played with, I don't know what the largest group we've played with easily. It says
it's 2 to 8
plus. It says 4 to 8 plus. Well, yeah, competitive is 4 to 8 plus. You can play it with as little as 2 people. I say usually when I think of party games, I usually think of something fun that usually makes people laugh. Exactly. Yeah. And Codenames probably won't make you laugh, but it will be it'll be a good game to play with a lot of people.
Yeah. So this is in the Vlada Chvátil series of I'm gonna take old game shows and make them into good party games, or like old party games, make them into good party games. So Pictomania was his like I'm gonna take Pictionary and make it good, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
And this is him taking Password, like the old TV show, and making it into a fun like kind of group party game.
So in this one, there's a group of words that are laid out, and you're trying to.
There'll be random nouns like cheeseburger and sleuth and.
Well, this one it's cat, code, dog, honey, and you're assigned a color, and you're trying to get your members of your team to guess the words of that color and not guess the other team's color.
So like 8 will be your color. 9 will be the other team's color, and then one of them is the assassin that will end the game that you definitely don't want them to guess.
Right. And it's extremely difficult for the spy master to try to get the team to guess.
Because you have to get them to guess with only one word. So what'll happen is maybe you have cat, dog, and elephant, and so you can just go, oh, animal, 3 of them. But maybe you have cat and dog, and they have elephant. And if you say animal 2, are you going to hope they guess it, or are you going to? You can say pet 2. Because that way they will go, oh, okay, it's not the elephant, because the elephant's not a pet. And so,
but what happens
those are the easy ones.
And then what happens when the assassin is dog?
And the assassin's dog.
It's really difficult to try to get them to guess.
And so you have to do all sorts of crazy things. And it helps if you have a good vocabulary.
Yeah, but it's a really interesting mental exercise.
How do I link dog and day or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, and again, it's not too often that you can find a really fun game that you can play with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's something that you can easily start when you're that you can start playing while you're still waiting for people to trickle in.
That's right. You have 4 people, and then whenever anyone comes in, they just jump on a team, right?
Yeah. So it's another great game for that. I don't think we've tried to play it yet with non-gamers so much. So I can't really speak to how well it works.
I imagine it worked pretty well. That's a pretty simple idea, but
yeah. But otherwise, this, like I said, number 3 game.
Yeah, it's my number 5. It's shooting up the Board Game Geek ranks as well.
I enjoyed it.
All right, so my number 3 and Stephanie's number 5 is Alchemists. Another app game.
It is
2 in a row for me, I guess.
I know that I think it was released at Essen last year, but it didn't become. We weren't able to buy it in the United States until the beginning of 2015.
We're counting as 2015. We don't care.
It's 2015.
It is a crazy game where it's a Euro game essentially, where you're trying to get victory points for doing different tasks. But the core of the game is this concept of trying to figure out the alchemical signs of these different elements. You'll have like Eye of Newt and like random stuff like Raven Feather and that kind of thing. And what you do is when you combine 2 of them, it makes a potion of some sort, either like plus or minus red, green, or blue, or a neutral potion. And so the way you do the app is you take a picture of the 2 with the app, and then it tells you what kind of potion it makes. And so it essentially becomes this like deduction game, like those old school logic puzzles that you love.
Yeah. Where
it's like, well, there are 5 people in 5 houses and they eat 5 kind of ice cream. The person in the blue house likes chocolate ice cream, and Cindy likes, Cindy lives in the greenhouse, and then you got to try to figure out like the combination of it. But it's a really cool way to do this, where you like put it into the app and you say, okay, well these 2 make blue plus, and these 2 make green plus, so this one has to be one of these 2 symbols, and you can cross it out, which means I know the other 2 are one of these symbols, and you have this like little chart you fill out, and then it's also a Euro game where in addition to doing that, you can get points for selling potions to passing adventurers, or publishing papers on what the signs are, or demonstrating that you can make potions. And it's a really cool combination of a thinky Euro game and like a fun deduction puzzle.
Yeah, so you're combining your deduction skills with how well you can capitalize on your deduction skills.
So you can be a great scientist who sucks at the business portion.
Yeah, and then you'll totally lose the game. So I think if anything, the downfall of this game is when you go in expecting it to be all deduction, especially if you're playing with 4 players.
Yeah. Because the more players you play with, the fewer turns you get every turn, or fewer like action workers you get.
Right, exactly. So then you expect to be able to deduct a lot, and then you don't get the opportunity to. So
even if you spend all your time deducting, right, you don't necessarily get all of the. You don't figure out all the alchemical signs,
right? So
it always bugs Stephanie a little bit.
It does a little bit because I want to figure out everything because I do love those logic puzzles so much. Yeah. But other than that, I do love the deduction aspect of it, and it is a challenge to figure out like the best worker placement aspects to gain the most victory points based on that. So I still really enjoy the game. It's my number 5, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, my number 5. So
cool. That's number 3 for me.
All right.
On number 2.
Number 2. So our number 2 is the same.
Same for both of us. Time Stories. Oh, that's really hard to see. Time Stories. All right. It got really dark all of a sudden. But yeah, that's Time Stories. It feels like unlike any other board game I've ever played.
Oh, for sure.
It's more like a story-based video game than it is like any board game. And it has a lot in common with those old like choose your own adventure books. Yeah,
it's a lot like those. It's a lot like old computer adventure games, but it's multiplayer. Yeah. So
I mean, we have a review out, and you should probably just check that out. But the biggest unique factor about it is that the starter game only has one story in it, and you can only play it once. And each expansion is only one story, and you can only play it once.
Right.
So it's an experience more than it is. It's like seeing a really good movie with a twist at the end, and you're like, oh well, I really enjoyed seeing that, but I don't really need to see it again because it's not as fun anymore. Like Sixth Sense or something.
I would say that so I really enjoy narrative video games. We play them through frequently, the two of us, although usually they're solo one player. So when we play them, usually we trade off playing them. One person plays and the other person watches, and then we switch. So it was really
fun making the decisions and figuring out.
Yeah, exactly, together. So it was fun for us to be able to play a co-op board game where we could play at the same time.
Yeah.
That was pretty awesome. I would say that the reason, in a sense, this game was tailor-made for us.
Yeah.
For that reason, which is the reason that it's so high on both of our lists.
Yeah.
The reason it's not number one is because of how awesome the game is. They're ranked number one in our list.
Any other year, this would have been number one.
Yeah. And the only other reason that it's not number one is because I felt that the story that came, or the two stories that were released. One
story came out, and there's been one expansion so far.
I thought that the stories could have been a little bit stronger. That came out in 2015. I will say that depending, I think it has the most promise. I think it has tremendous promise, what the game is. And depending on what they do with it, maybe 5 years from now, if we're doing a retrospective on what the best games were in 2015, it's quite possible that that we'll look back at it and be like, that is by far the best game that was ever created.
So
we will see.
Yeah, it's really like a platform for creating games, for creating these stories, because in the base box it comes with all the base stuff you need to play whatever game you're going to play, all the tokens, the board, etc. And then when you get a new expansion, a new story, it's just a deck of cards that does all the locations and characters and everything for that. So it's really like a setup, and it can tell any kind of story. And the two different stories that came out already were completely different. And it seems like the next one's coming out is almost like a fantasy.
Yeah, it seems more like
world.
Sort of D&D, sort of dungeon exploring fantasy, maybe,
so,
as opposed to.
It's got so much potential.
One, the ones that were released, one was sort of like Cthulhu-y, one was like zombie, sort of.
Not too much spoilers.
Those are just the general themes of the story.
So,
I'm okay. I almost got dive bombed.
But yeah, it's got a lot of potential. You can tell any story. You can take any movie and or video game and put it into this and be able to play through it.
Yeah.
It's like Quantum Leap meets Groundhog Day, because you're going back in time and you're going back in time and back into other dimensions and inhabiting other people's bodies and taking over. So you could literally be like, if they wanted to get licenses for it, you go like, oh, okay, I'm going to play a Star Trek episode, and I have to go through it a couple times to try to figure out all the stuff. And they could just make a Star Trek thing, or they could make literally a Cthulhu thing, or obviously that's public domain, so it's much easier. But you could take any movie or game you've ever seen and make a version of this. Yeah. It's so open.
So I think that comparing narrative games to other games is totally fine. I've been playing narrative computer games next to other games my whole life, and I love narrative games. So
we like stories.
I welcome narrative games in board game form as well. So,
but it's so hard to do.
Yeah. So really well. I'm hoping that they only get better from here on in.
Yeah.
So, and now that brings us to number one.
It's the same for both of us.
It's the same for both of us, and we don't actually have the box. We'll flash it on the screen. Because we were playing our friend's copy, and he took it home to frame it.
It is Pandemic Legacy, which again is a little controversial for some people because it's a game with a set number of plays, and the surprise ruins it essentially. If you haven't heard of it, it is Pandemic, which is a great game. If you haven't played Pandemic, go play that right now. Turn this off. Go play Pandemic. We have a review of it. You can go look at that. But it's in a narrative form, and it's in the Legacy format, which was kind of started by Risk Legacy, I think, was the big one. Mm-hmm. But the idea is, as you play through the game, it'll say, okay, you're going to play through this first game. Open up and read these cards. And they might add rules that you actually take stickers out and put them in the rule book. And all of a sudden, those are rules. It might have things you have to put stickers on the board. You might have to write on the board. You might have to write on your character cards. You might have to take stickers and put them on your character cards. You might have to rip up a card if someone dies or something bad happens to them, and you can never play it again. You're literally instructed to rip up the card, and you could keep it, but it's hard. It's so hard to go back and play it. That's crazy. You play over 12 months of the year, and as the story develops, new stuff happens every month. If you lose a month, you play it again. So you're going to get between 12 and 24 plays of the game.
Yeah, we got 15, so we lost 3 times.
But it's definitely in this disposable game category almost, where you're going to play it through once. You're going to do such like harm physically to the game and break all the surprises that it'll be hard to play it again. That's being said, 2 discussions to have there. 3 people played it. We got 15 games out of it. It was like $45. It was like $1 a game per person. That's not too bad.
Right.
Better than going to see a movie, and we got like an hour and a half of game for each one, so it's pretty good. And we're going to go play it again. We are. We have another copy on the way.
Because it's easier with less people, and it's hardest with the max of 4 people. So we're going to do it again with 4 people, even though we know what's coming up. We're going to try to get the max possible score.
Yeah. We're going to see if playing with 4 people, which is really hard, we can still get the max score when we know what's going on. So.
Yeah. But it's a very, it's still, it has a full story from start to finish. Just as we were talking about with the narrative games that are coming out, this is definitely one of them. I felt like we played it over the course of 2 months, once a week. Well, I guess we were getting in about 2 months, averaging about 2 months over each play session. But we had 1 play session a week, and it felt like we were having a cliffhanger at the end of every week. It was very dramatic.
There were emails sent back and forth about what we're going to do, what characters we're going to play. And...
it was a very harrowing experience. And I don't think that I've had any similar play experience quite like it. I guess maybe some of our earlier Descent campaigns, but like this, like I said, it was cinematic, basically, what happened in our game. And
then we literally like surprises that'll happen in the middle of a game session. Like some of the things will be like, oh, here's what you have to do, and it surprises you at the beginning, and you can plan for it. But some things it'll be like, when this happens, scratch off this card and read it, and you're like, oh, and then you have to change your complete strategy in the middle of it, and it was like, that shocker in the middle of an episode right before commercial break.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
Yeah, and it felt like playing a video game, but almost more immersive. I tend to feel more immersed in board games than I do in video games, just because you're physically interacting with objects.
Yeah,
people you're playing with are in the room with you. So, in that sense,
and there's not a lot of story thematic. Oh my gosh, video games that are multiple player.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Usually, like when you're playing one of those immersive games that has all this story, it's by yourself, and so. And you can talk about someone later, but you don't have the experience of we all scratched this off and heard it at the same time and read it and saw it. You get that with movies sometimes, and you go like, "Oh, do you remember when?"
Right, but here it's actually happening to you because
it's happening to you as you're playing with other people.
So overall, I thought I had a great experience playing Pandemic Legacy. So that's why it's my number 1.
Me too. It was so cool. And again, in retrospect, Time Stories might beat it out, but with only those 2 adventures under the belt and how crazy cool the experience of Pandemic Legacy was, Pandemic Legacy wins.
Yeah.
So, if you made it all the way to the end, good job. Thank you. Let us know what games that we didn't have on the list that you guys thought should have been. Maybe they were on our list and we didn't mention it. We'll let you know. Or maybe something we just haven't played yet. But we'd like to hear what you guys think. And remember, ours is a very, specific perspective. We like cooperative games. We like thematic story-driven games. Not that we don't like, Euro games or heavy strategy games. It's just not what we gravitate toward as much. That's why it's sort of a personal list. We overlap quite a bit, but that's because we play games together, right? So we're going to play the same games.
Oh yeah.
But we'd love to hear what other people have to say, what they think. Let us know what you thought of some of the games we had on our list. Good to hear other people's perspectives. Because we always say with the website and the way we review things is that every game is a 10 for someone, even if it's just a designer's mom.
Yeah.
So every game is a 10 for someone. Every game is a 1 for someone. Every game is good for certain people. So, speaking of which, you can go to our website and tagratings.com. It'll be down here somewhere under the description, and you can fill out some attributes and how you feel about those, and it'll give you customized board game recommendations, including some of the ones on this list. You should also subscribe on YouTube, follow on Twitter, like on Facebook, friend us on MySpace.
Don't do that.
We don't have MySpace. Yeah. Anything else we missed? Well, you know how Blood Rage is. That's the other one I'm really excited about for 2015.
We've got Food Chain Magnet coming, but that hasn't been released in the United States.
You're so excited
That's
about Food
technically
Chain
a
Magnet.
2016 game here, so.
She just wants burger meeples.
Yes, and cheesy 1950s graphics.
Okay, you do love the retro graphics.
I do.
See, Swinging Jack Cat Buddha Lounge. All right, see you guys next time.
Woo!
Bye.